So this happened to me about 8 years ago. I used to work at a tobacconist when I was 18. My first job after graduating high school, but not my first job in retail. Staff there were hired as casual employees, but on full-time hours. I got the job at the time because I was young and that meant I was cheap labor, but the pay was pretty decent and I was job hunting and took the first job I was offered so I could move out of home. When I first started, there was 4 of us employed. 2 of us would be on shift at a time with a 1-hour handover. The opening hours were from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. I was happy doing the closing shift because I wasn't a morning person at all. A couple months into my employment, the company decided to change their business hours during weekdays from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. with 9 p.m. on late night shopping. This upped my hours some more money, and of course I was put on a couple closing shifts at night with rotation between me and another worker, but only one person would stay at the shop from 6 p.m. I was a little bit iffy about this because I lived in a sketchy suburb in a sketchy town. The later it got at night, the more undesirables were abundant. Our laws prohibit us from carrying protection, and at the time I didn't drive, so I relied on buses or taxis as transports. Taxis weren't reliable here. You'd call one and they wouldn't show or make you wait an hour or so I stuck with buses because you knew they had arrived. Uber wasn't an option then. There was a transit bus stop 1 minute away from my work. One scheduled to leave about 5 minutes before our closing time. I tried to negotiate this to my boss to close a little early, but he wasn't open to the idea. "You can catch a cab?" he offers. Yeah, I could, but that's not guaranteed. I usually got them on my 9 p.m. shift. So my routine was to stay on till closing and wait 30 to 40 minutes for the next bus. As practice, I would wait in the closed door until 5 minutes before the bus arrived, then walk and wait by the bus stop. So one night I shut shop, hang out a bit inside with the lights on so the shopping center security knows I'm still there, and head out to the bus stop at 8:30 p.m. I was relieved to see there was about 6 other people waiting at the stop. As I'm standing there waiting for the bus, a guy in his 30s or 40s who was visibly intoxicated and on other stuff, who knows what, approaches me. "Where are you headed?" Home. "Can I come home with you?" I shake my head no. He then takes a step closer, and he is so close I can smell and feel his breath on my face. Automatically I step back so I'm not out of my comfort zone and try to walk closer to the other people. A regular customer I like could see me and try to start up a conversation to get me out of talking to this creep, but the creep got real pissed at this. He got intimidating and told me to look at him when he's talking to me. He was smiling in a way that made me feel sick, and my whole body suddenly rushed with adrenaline. I tried to say I'm not talking to you, but he just kept trying to get closer and closer to me and insisted we're going home together. Thankfully, the buses finally started to arrive and I started feeling relieved, hoping this guy would get on one before me. Nope. He lingers and asks what bus I'm getting on. There's no way I'm telling him, so I ask him to what bus he's getting on. If it's the same one as me, I'm catching a different one. Well, he told me he's getting on mine. My heart sank. My bus was the last in line, so everyone was piling onto theirs and I was about to be left alone with this guy. I knew he would follow me. If I tried to call the cops on the bus, would he become more aggressive? I was already in how the fuck do I get out of this mode? Just as my bus pulls and opens the door, the transit security pulls up behind them, rush out of the car yelling at the creep. "We told you to move on from here." The creep starts cussing and yelling but walks away. Security guy asks if I'm alright and I just nod and jump on my bus before it pulls away. I'm so grateful they arrived when they did, and I dread to think what could have happened if this man did follow me home. To the creepy unstable man, let's not meet. So for a little background here, I have played the drums for 11 years of my life, so I've gotten pretty decent at marching percussions and playing the drum set. I'm currently a college student who obviously needs money, so I took 2 jobs that had to do with teaching drumming to kids. The first job, which I only recently left because of the pandemic, was an amazing opportunity at a school district to be a part-time music teacher. I love that job. The story has to do with the other music job I took up, which was at a non-profit that I don't want to name for legal reasons that resides in my town. So at this non-profit, there are 2 main coordinators in charge who happen to be an older married couple. The husband was in charge of the science and art side of the facility, while the wife, Bernice, was in charge of the music side of the facility. So she was all in aspects my boss, and also one of the piano teachers. I taught drum set with a high school friend of mine named Jay. There was a guitar teacher who I was also friends with named Ray, and an elderly piano teacher named Mary. So that was the entire music department at the facility. I started the job when their last drum set teacher suddenly left to pursue his dream career in the Bay Area. Bernice really wanted me to start immediately, so I did, but during my interview, she had been very nice and cordial, but I sometimes noticed how rude she was to other employees. Most of the people working on the science side were merely high school students, and one of them may have forgot a small thing like forgetting to put a screwdriver back where it belonged, and she would degrade the hell out of them. She would say things like, "How will you keep a job if you can't do simple things like this? Are you even using your brain? I should fire you, but I won't because I'm a nice person." I would see this kind of stuff go down, but I could never say anything because I honestly really didn't think it was my business, and I didn't want to get yelled at either. I will also briefly explain that she also revealed that she was very religious and homophobic, and I was very obviously not straight. I tried to ignore these outbursts, but they started to get to me. I would try to talk to these kids afterwards and reassure them that they could only do their best and that should be good enough. A few months into the job, I even tried to talk to her about that it was a huge mistake. But that was a huge mistake. I said that maybe she shouldn't be so hard on them since they're just still kids. She had been cheerful and smiling, but once I finished the sentence, she got quiet. Her expression went blank and her eyes turned cold. If looks could kill, I'm sure I would be very dead. After a few seconds of silence, she suddenly yelled, "Mind your business, those ungrateful brats need to learn their place and so do you." I was absolutely stunned. I had no words. I have never been yelled like that by a boss in any of my jobs before, so it really just shook me. I just sat there with what I'm guessing was a look of shock. She then immediately went back to smiling and simply said, "I think you have a lesson with little Timmy in 5 minutes, don't you? Better get ready for it." And she said it with the fucking smile on her face, like what the hell? I just got up and got ready for my next lesson. After that, I began to get yelled at by her pretty much every week for the smallest thing. Maybe if I finished a lesson a minute early, or I forgot to fill my timesheet right away. I endured months of this until I finally had enough. I lasted a year and a half until I finally quit. When I quit, she encouraged me to call or text anytime, which seems so odd considering she yelled at me every day for the last week I worked. I thanked her for the opportunity she gave and left without incident. Or at least, I thought it was without incident. Before I left my position, I recommended to a parent to have their kid get lessons from a friend of mine because her son was an absolute musical prodigy who needed more intense training to grow as a musician. She thanked me, and I connected them, and he's actually still getting lessons with my friend, and I get occasional videos of his progress, and I'm just so proud of him. Only 10, and he can now play me easily on a drum set. However, the mother of the student accidentally told Bernice the reason why her son was leaving the nonprofit and said that I had recommended it. That happened in the middle of January of 2020. By the end of January, my email inbox had been flooded with emails from Bernice. They ranged from her needing me to come back to sign a form to obviously being mad about recommending the student to leave the nonprofit. Every day there were at least 10 emails, and on bad days there were upwards of 30 emails. I blocked her email after 2 weeks because I knew it wasn't just going to stop anytime soon, and I finally had some relief. Then, I noticed she tried to friend me on Facebook and follow me on Instagram. When I blocked those accounts, it was her husband's account that tried. I then blocked those as well. She tried it again and used the nonprofit social media pages to follow me. I had no idea why she was being so persistent and did not know what to do. It seemed to calm down, so I thought she gave up, but a week later, I had random accounts trying to follow me all over my social media. I asked my friends that I had worked with if they could see her doing this while she was in the office. So Jay and Ray went into the office when she had her lesson and looked onto her monitor, and there were a bunch of tabs open. And all these tabs were with the different faceless accounts on Facebook and Instagram that had been attempting to follow me. They closed them all, and when she asked about it, they played dumb and said that they've been looking for sheet music and accidentally closed all the tabs. They said she looked super pissed, but then she suddenly asked them if they had me on social media, and they just said they didn't know and tried to walk out. Before they walked out, she asked if they would tell her what lies I had told them, and they said she didn't know what she was talking about. She got even more pissed and yelled at them to stop acting stupid and to tell the truth, and they again told her that I've never said anything about her or the nonprofit. She suddenly went on a whole tangent about how I was going to steal all the students and the nonprofit would have to shut down. From here, she never spoke to them about it again. But after this, I did notice I started seeing her whenever I went to Walmart in town to get groceries and such. I'm telling you, 8 out of 10 times that I would go, she would be there. She never spoke a word to me, but she would always just kind of lurk. One day, my younger sister said Bernice spoke to her while she was at McDonald's inside the Walmart when she went after school to grab food with friends. Luckily, my sister knew who she was, so she was not going to give any information to her when she asked if she was my sister and how I was doing. My sister kindly said she didn't know who she was and didn't feel comfortable talking to her, and then proceeded to ignore her. Bernice just smiled and then left, but my sister called me shortly afterwards and asked me to pick her up from Walmart because she rightfully felt super uncomfortable. I sped over from my college and got there within 15 minutes, and she ran out and got in my car and we sped off. As I left the parking lot, I could see Bernice's car had pulled out of a space and was following us. I knew it was her car because I had seen it every time I went to work, and it had a logo of the nonprofit on the side of it, so it was hard to miss. I realized she had been waiting in that space to either follow my sister back to the school or, in this case, follow me who had picked her up. I drive a bright red Honda Civic, so it's pretty easy to even see me from a distance, so I knew I had to lose this crazy lady because I had no idea what her intentions were. So I decided to take some side street and drive all kinds of random ways through our town, and then I even got on the highway that takes you to the closest major city, and then got off a random country road. It was insane because this woman was persistent as hell. She caught up and kept up with me until I got onto the highway. Once I got on, I easily was doing 80 to 90 miles per hour and weaving in and out of traffic to lose her, and eventually, I finally did. I then parked in between some archers off one of the country roads I took. My sister has been on the phone with our mom the entire time, who then proceeded to let our town's police know. We got on the phone with them and they told us to drive to the police station, and there would be someone waiting to help us. So I made my way back to town while constantly checking my mirrors for Bernice. We made it, and I gave a statement and they made a report and then asked me to describe the car. I said it was a Burgundy SUV with the nonprofit's logo on the side. They said it should be easy to find it, and they went straight forward to the nonprofit to find her. Sadly, Bernice had an alibi waiting for them when they got there. She showed them the security footage of the front of the facility, and the Burgundy SUV with the logo had been sitting in its spot since she opened, so there was no way she could have followed me according to the police. They said there was nothing more they could do, and it was left at that, but I knew what I had seen. It was messing with my mind for days until finally I got my answer on how she pulled off that stunt. Jay informed me 2 weeks later that Bernice had announced that they had bought an identical SUV with the logo and everything for the nonprofit. I was stunned. It was the same make, model, and color of the SUV. Even the license plate were almost identical, only having 2 digits differ from the original SUV's plate. Bernice had played the cops into thinking I had just had an overactive imagination. She knew exactly what she was doing. I was just so frustrated by this point. Eventually, I emailed her and told her to stay away from my family and I because I was never going to be talking to her again, and clarified that I had no intention of taking any students from her. Hell, I'm not even a goddamn music major, so why would I even want to continue doing anything music oriented? Her reply was almost instantaneous. Sounds good, dear. You take care now, and be sure to tell your sister that I said hi.